Hello, everybody. I'm back. Thank you for joining me here again for another presentation. Thank you so much. As you can see, I have lit a candle and called Mama Nebthet in, as I always do, to join us. Throughout my presentations, I've discovered different images of her, and this is one that was one of the first ones that I discovered. Let me get on this side of the camera so I can see what I'm pointing at. This one, and then this image of her I really like. Charla, my friend, sent me this image of her, knowing my love for Nebthet. And I think I've posted perhaps one or two other images of her. But thank you, Mama Nebthet, for coming on in and assisting me through this presentation, as you have through the entire Impromptu Nebthet musical. Just briefly about that, I really do spend a lot of time with the Damian Laster Conscious Doctor YouTube channel playlist, where there are 190 presentations, pretty much everything I've done since I mustered the courage to begin teaching online. You get to see the presentation where Mama Nebthet revealed herself to me and Mama Nebthet, and all the things, all the music that she has selected, the ordering of the slides, all of that is evident that I'm not making that up. I have to admit, I have not seen her in raven form in a while, although the other day a black butterfly graced the window, and I believe it to be Mama Nebthet. I love her so much. Okay, I wrote down again a list of a few things that I would like to discuss today. I want you all to understand that I am very much interested in hearing back from you when you comment about these posts, whether it's a song or a teaching. I need to hear what you think about the issues, not about how I look or how I sound. I do appreciate that, but I am looking for help and support, and for those who read those comments to gain an awareness based on what you have shared of your own knowledge and personal experience. So going forward, please do that a little bit more. Again, I just checked the GCU Truth and Education views, and they were up to like 28 or so. Since I am, again, no longer on Facebook because I was suspended so often for 30 days, I am now only posting on Instagram, which is a different type posting experience, and I receive a far less feedback even there. Okay? Doing presentations like this, impromptu, it is difficult because I may be lying in bed or going about my day or studying something, and all sorts of things come to mind that I want to get in. But then in the moment when you're speaking, the mind goes a lot of different places, and a lot of times I'll leave out something important. Okay? So let me just try to stay on track a little better with the Dr. Banks Highland Park presentation that I did the other day, and thought that it would be in two parts. But upon doing part two, after there was not enough room in the cutoff on part one, I decided I wouldn't necessarily go back and repeat, though there were some things that were left off because that presentation never made it to you. But it was about Dr. Banks and what it's like for someone like me to see her standing before a crowd of people representing the great divine mother, and reminding me of my own mother, how my mother has made so many changes once she has learned of things that could be self-corrected in herself. and has been such an inspiration to me to keep me on track or to lift me up when I'm feeling really down. And my moods do fluctuate a lot, I believe, due to Kundalini, due to the trauma and stress of bogus HIV. I don't think there are any studies out there about how people are dealing with this. I have talked and posted of many people being misdiagnosed as schizophrenic when they are really experiencing Kundalini emergence and spiritual crisis. It's a very real thing. I'm going to talk probably about that a little later. But on Dr. Banks, standing before people, looking beautiful, being highly educated, and aware of her own history and of Hemmitt and of chakras and Kundalini, it touches a place deep in my soul to see that she's doing that. And also the fact that she had told me when I was just beginning that it was going to take a lot to continue with this process because people tune it out or they're not interested, and it's just difficult to reach people who are not yet awakened. And her best friend, whom she dedicated her first book to, was doing it in New York before I began, but he gave up and quit. And it's something that I probably have done from time to time, but I always end up right back here because I'm the one living through it. So again, I want to say thank you to Dr. Banks. She talked about so many things. I touched briefly on the Microsoft Corporation. She named eugenicists and Apple Corporation, symbolisms. She talked a lot about genocide and eugenics and this position on the divine feminine principle, which my dissertation is about, from HIV to Kundalini, awakening the divine feminine within. Because since the day of my Kundalini awakening and the ravens and all of that, everything has changed. I read a lot of personal stories from people in a group called, Shared Transformation. A group of people who've experienced Kundalini, people of all races, and a lot of them experience explosions in creativity. And that's what has happened here to me. And so it's almost as if, on the one hand, my mother would say, look at all the things you've done since you've become socially isolated. You know, every time Facebook kicks you off, you come back with some more presentations. And so while that is true, it's still not enough. It does not take the place of social interaction. Loves, hugs, touch, intimacy, sex. And it's been many years. You know, I moved back to Atlanta thinking I'm going to get in contact with all these conscious people again. You know, but everywhere I go, the environment has changed. And then learning all that Bobby Hemmitt has shared with us, even though I knew a little bit about cloning, and you know, you just hear things, you see things online, but all of his full-length presentations are out there, and he is absolutely amazing. All of the experiences that he's had, that I've shared in other presentations, if you'll watch those, I did even a tribute to Bobby Hemmitt. And I often mention him because what he has taught, even though it was 5-10 years ago, throughout the 90s and 2000s, but he is retired now. All of those things have happened, and they do actually still apply. So since I don't watch television, because it's too dangerous for somebody like me to watch television, knowing that the messages that are going to be coming through there are going to be deception. It is a tell-lie vision. The news programs, the programming on TV shows, all of that can throw my consciousness into another place that I don't need it or want it to be. And so I spend most of my days, thank God I do have Netflix, I can occasionally find a movie or something like that, but studying Bobby Hemmitt and other master teachers, more intently, pausing, repeating, playing them over and over, posting about that, Bobby Hemmitt is no longer on the circuit. There's a whole new younger crew out there, and people my age who I've been studying Bobby Hemmitt for quite a long time. I believe since 1996 or 7. But back then, they only posted parts of his presentations. Lately, they have released full lengths where he is all over the country and out of the country in 3-day long presentations. So there is so much information that is applicable to today. And the one that has impacted me the most is the cloning situation. I have revealed to you all reluctantly about my substance abuse and drug addiction issues, and how that entire 10-year period, it was so strange. And I'm not just making this up, but I stayed involved in it because when in that state of mind and the people who are around, you begin to notice patterns in behavior that intrigue you. You want to come to understand it, so you go and do it again and see if you can figure it all out. Well, there were so many things that I never figured out until Bobby Hemmitt revealed more of the details of cloning. Being here in Atlanta, none of those people whom at that time seemed like I could just turn the corner and boom, there they would be. You know, and it was a core group of people. None of them are around anymore. Also, and I hope I'm not getting too far off the topic, it's the same topic. Now that I'm back here, and I have been posting about locations that Bobby Hemmitt has talked about, and I get to drive through the city. When you live in a city, you get to know the city. You know all the places where the homeless people are in droves. You know where the shelters are. You know where the stadium is. You know where different areas of the city. And I can clearly tell you that I have identified many of the sites. I've posted about the closed projects here in Atlanta as well as Montgomery. My mother and I went out and investigated one night, and she was abhorred, really. Having lived there all her life, having family members who lived in projects, having family members dealing with prison, all those situations. Now that we understand what really happens in prisons, cloning, basically modern day slavery, and myself having had short stints after DUI arrests beginning in the early 90s throughout my time in Birmingham, and moving between there and here in Atlanta and Montgomery, I can clearly see that we are living in a completely different world now. Bobby Hemmitt has talked about the eradication of black people. All of us globally is the ultimate goal, as was laid out when Thomas Jefferson, I believe, was president, and he spoke about having perhaps to ship all the black people back to Africa, or some other means of keeping us locked down, I guess you'd say. But I've been posting online and posing the question, who is responsible for the eradication of black people? And nobody seems to have noticed. We talk about people sitting around a table, the elite people making decisions, playing games with all of our lives, but somebody has to be participating in carrying out the eradication of millions of people, the transporting of the people or the bodies, and then the process of becoming melanin pills or being shipped to Africa to work in these new cities that we don't hear anything about, that have people whose memory has been wiped out. When you ride around this city, you don't know who you can trust. People will smile, but if you get a second glimpse back, your intuition will tell you something's not right with that person. That's a function of Kundalini Awakening, increased and enhanced intuition. So it's not that you're becoming paranoid, which might explain why they're diagnosing people with paranoid schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. No, the consciousness expands. And the way to remain sane is to not deny yourself what you know to be true. What you just saw, what you just experienced, what you just felt. Trusting yourself. Now, I'm going to move from here into my other room, where I have also here lit a candle to Mama Nebthet. I don't like sitting and watching someone stand behind a podium or talk for hours behind a desk. I like a little movement, a little action, and that's why I've basically turned my home into a studio. To make it a little bit more interesting for you when I'm just standing there holding my cell phone, singing in the back of it, pointing at a picture. A little bit of movement may hold your attention a little bit better. I'm going to lower the music just a tad here and move over here where I've already set up a chair, as well as lit a candle to the Kemetan Pantheon, which are archetypes of consciousness that exist in all of us. Parts of ourselves, energies that we can draw on to manifest a new physical reality. You can see that I have my lavado. I bought this little skeleton dinosaur type thing, and I put a blue hat on it because I know his color is blue. I have my ancestors here. My great-grandfather, whom I didn't spend a whole lot of time with as a child, but my mother has since taught me many things about him, and I see myself in him. I can't wait to meet him on the other side. He was a fighter like I am. I want to call your attention here to Amun-Ra. Charla made Amun-Ra. She didn't even realize at the time she was making that for me. She had not seen that picture that she created. It looked just like a picture of mine when I was teaching pre-K. I had my locks down just like that picture. But I want to say that Charla is still missing. I love you so much. I miss you so much. I grieve daily. And that's why it's a little bit easier for me to go around the city and find these locations and other odd things and then post about it and ask questions. But here again, nobody's saying anything, not within the post, because it does take courage to do something like that, because we are living in a dangerous world. But anyway, I love you, Charla. I miss you. I wish I could get some sort of resolution on what has happened. But anyway, here I am at the Kemetan. Here, I was speaking of lavado. Bobby Hemmitt, and please listen to his presentations. I really like the Nyarlahotep series. I like all the ones about the shadow and all about the shadow realm, the dream realm, all of those things that teach us about who we really are. But, just listening to him, I learned a lot about the Pantheon. Now, I'm aware that that was for another time. Those energies are probably asleep somewhere. But, I wouldn't know who Mama Nebthet was unless she got my attention. I've taught and posted about that, so I don't let people tell me, you're wasting your time talking about Mama Nebthet. They aren't concerned about us, etc. I don't fall for that. I go by what I directly live and experience. And right here, if I can get an angle on it, over Ampu here, you can see that I keep stones, all the elements that belong on an altar: earth, water, fire, and air. And then other important things that mean something to me, energies within myself that I am looking to draw on. But all the names of these new entities, I'm going to read some of them. I posted boards of them. I'll freeze a Bobby Hemmitt presentation and take a photo and then I'll post that, urging others to become aware of this, and then use these spiritual powers so we can enact change. It looks like these psychopaths are going crazy, killing us. And you know, all of us are sitting around. We've been working for many years hoping to awaken and then be able to make some sort of real change. But that has not happened. And because of my Kundalini Awakening, you may have seen a presentation that I did about negative entity attachment and removal. I had just left my Birmingham home. I believe I had perhaps an entity was lodged in some pork. At that time, I was still eating pork ribs. I had my last hurrah, but I got, I would say, deathly sick the day of my move, and remained sick for about a month. I even submitted myself to hospitals, knowing that I should never do that. They had me rolling out all on that machine that covers up your body. They had stuff in my arm, and they couldn't find anything. I left 2 hospitals with prescriptions for antibiotics, which I never took, except that first time I took them, but for one day. But I could tell that they weren't really doing anything for the issue that I have, which is in the rectal area. Entities lodged there. And it has been a full year. Now, there was a time when I surrounded myself with spiritually conscious friends who are into healing, natural healers, herbalists, and everybody, and I and my mother, all of our old remedies. None of it has worked, and I have been living in pain for almost a year now, to the point where some days I really am suicidal. You know, now if I were to go in and tell a counselor about that, I'd get some sort of diagnosis and all of that. And I think people fear counseling for legitimate reasons, although much great things can happen out of being able to speak to someone who can have an objective look at yourself. So I'm thankful to have my mother and a few friends who will listen, but I know it wears them out, and I want change to be made. I feel like that's why we incarnated in this lifetime, because we are the chosen ones. We are the fallen ones. We're the great old ones. We are the awakened ones. And while it's a very few of us, you know, I came up with the saying today, you know, that patience ain't no that damn virtue. Patience is a pain in the ass. My Kundalini Awakening in 98, I was probably waking up long before then, and, you know, all these years we've been studying so much, having to remain open, learning that what we were being taught was a lie, and then learning newer things and still remaining open for what else might be out there for us to learn. And so, you know, there are times when you dedicate a lot of time and energy to whatever, and then things don't happen. You begin to question yourself, which self-doubt is not very good at all. It can diminish your will. And so here I am stuck with this problem in my root chakra, I guess you would say. By the way, what you hear in the background, you hear in several of my presentations. It is called, it's a third eye meditation. It lasts 7 hours or so more. And, it helps me to have that playing in the background while Bobby Hemmitt, it's almost like something's coming from a whole new dimension directly to me. And I'm sure you all have little ways of raising the vibration in your own home with your own altar, with music and those types of things. We all have things that we do to grow spiritually and to stay motivated. But let's see, I kind of got off topic. Let's see, where was I? I wrote in my book about the Arcturian MAP teams, medical assistance program, that used to come in teams and heal me. Some sort of a vibrational hearing that they would do on my lung area when using drugs was causing me to damage them, and I knew that I was damaging them. But they used to come regularly back then upon request, but that has not happened. And I am concerned about that because I even paid a proctologist to tell me that I had a hidradenitis suppurativa, which basically is an acute case of a pimple. But this thing is not that. I don't think he's aware of the spiritual side of things. Or if he is, he's not discussing that with me. And so this problem has become worse. That area, that swollen area down there, makes urination and defecation very difficult. And it's so embarrassing to be talking about that, but I need somebody to do something to help, even if it's distance healing. You know, Bobby Hemmitt teaches a lot about being under attack. He has spoken so eloquently about all of that, and even before I knew who he was, when I heard him speak, I was like, I went through that. That happened to me. He talked about his inner ear being under attack. He got an ear candling. He talked about toothaches and other health issues, but I have had serious toothaches. I used his suggestion of urine therapy, I'll just call it here, and I drank and gargled with my own urine, and it healed a toothache that was debilitating. I had gone to the doctor a number of times within the last year about that, but I could not afford whatever procedures they were recommending. But now I have no pain. I can have a little area on this side of my mouth where I can chew, and now I can actually chew down on foods, something I wasn't able to do. So I'm very thankful for that. But this problem that's affecting my gait, my sitting, my standing, you know, if I go in a store and stand in line, I got to shift from leg to leg and do it inconspicuously because of this, I believe, to be an entity that is lodging itself around that area, because as I also talked about in the kidneys and other organs in the body, all of the organs being governed by entities, all of which have to do with our spiritual body, and the pineal gland and the hypothalamus and the pituitary, the house of God, the medulla oblongata, all of that knowledge, that whatever this entity is, it's blocking that. You know, maybe I would have been one of the ones to have illuminated and then been able to make some change around here. But because of those type attacks, just like bogus HIV was an attack on my melanin DNA that was designed to take me out. But here again, I am one who has transcended that for a reason. All those people I dealt with in the world of drugs that are no longer around, those were distractions. Those were decoy clone distractions. I now understand their weird behaviors. Even to the point of wanting to get on my computer and sitting at my computer and my laptop doing certain things. I was like, what are they doing? But I don't know, because I had no knowledge of clone back then, not at the level that I do now. And so all of that could be very much related. And now they're no longer around, not though that way. But Bobby Hemmitt has spoken about, you know, a lot of whites have been cloned. You know, when you understand that cloning was, the secrets were figured out in the 20s when they brought Mengele over here from Europe, and then heavy cloning in the 50s, and then heavy black cloning in the 70s. And then all the issues I've raised about Alzheimer's and whether that's related. But you don't know who is who, or if they're human or whatever they are, because the soul is removed during that process. Not to mention all the black men in prison. I have a relative who's serving a life sentence. You know, has he been cloned? You know, so many unanswered questions. You know, and then with the understanding of Bobby Hemmitt that enlightenment is a reality, the realization of the death of reality, and that death is a good thing. Our ancestors were all about that. But then we're still here, and reality doesn't feel like an illusion when you're in pain, or when you have bills to pay, or when you didn't get the job you wanted. He has clearly said it is over for us here. We're in the null zone. And something's going to happen, but it's not happening fast enough for me. And probably a lot of you out there too, who just don't want to talk about it because you don't want to appear to be weak. But we're not weak. We're strong just for still maintaining here. And so I I hope that I don't one day, out of a low sunken period, decide to take my own life. But I need help removing this entity because the pain is becoming a little bit more than I'm willing to bear. Especially if I know that death is good, and some of the people who pass to the other side or feel that they're in a better place, nobody wants to return here. And I'm socially isolated. That is, I can't even tell you, having been someone who was well connected socially, now feeling completely cut off. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm having a pity party. What I am doing today is demonstrating an open heart chakra and throat chakra. These chakras saved my life, abiding those principles. And other things. We have to take an eclectic approach to health maintenance, and our ancestors laid the foundation for all of it. I want to thank you to them. Thank you to Mama Nebthet. Thank you to my mother. Thank you to Dr. Banks. Thank you to all the master teachers. Thank you to all of my spiritual brothers and sisters. I could name you all right here, right now, but I don't want to embarrass you. But I do say thank you. I love you all. Please make a playlist of Nebthet's musical. There are radio interviews there. There are teachings on melanin, Kundalini, ancient African history, Hemmitt, homosexuality, about those who need to understand that aspect of themselves. And then all of the songs that have been created, I believe, well enough for me to listen to in my radio, preferring that over the radio. So maybe that bug will catch you. It's sort of like a book on tape when you're traveling or you're driving and you are listening to a book, which was a great idea. Anyway, I want to say again that I love you. Thank you for taking the time to hear with me today. Please make comments about what I'm talking about and not just click like or love or make shallow, superficial comments about how I look. Because we are not this body. As a matter of fact, that reminds me, I found these images, which I wanted to show you since I mentioned them the other day, of what we might look like. I wish I could get in there on it real good. Let me move. Maybe I can move this way and still be able to see what I'm showing. First of all, we see Ptah there. I hope you're seeing him. I can't see what I'm pointing at. But see that entity there? There. We are not human. Maybe we look like that. So it's not about our physical appearance or being attached to any of that, because that is not who we are. Okay? I love you all. Goodbye. Have a great rest of the week and weekend.